Thank you very much. My current title is Distinguished Professor at the Near East South Asia Center of the National Defense University. So one time I introduced myself by using that title, saying that when you have the title distinguished before professor, that means you're not really a professor. So you will never hear me use the term with the other panelists that they are distinguished gentlemen, or you might get the wrong idea. I am a person who I would say has tried actively to fly under the radar throughout my career. And I'll get into that in a minute. But you've heard this eulogy of Jobs, and I think it's important that you know a little bit more about who I am that I think you can relate to. I grew up in the city of Chicago back in the 1950s. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought our neighborhood was mixed. We had Polish American Catholics, Irish American Catholics, and Italian American Catholics. And a Protestant family was as rare as a Jewish family. And we did not, we all went to our Catholic schools, and you could walk to a Catholic school and you could ride a bus to a Protestant school. That's how far away they were. I stumbled into Israel by chance, and it was quite a stumble. I was hitchhiking around the world, and I was in Italy, see my homeland, for 2 months, and the dollar dropped in 1973, and I thought, what am I going to do? It was like only 150 lira to the dollar, so somebody said, go to Israel. I came here. If you remember those days, they had little blackboards where they would change the exchange rate because the inflation was so high. Anyway, I met some other kids, and we went down to Beersheba, and we went camping. And that night, Bedouins raided our tent. This is almost stranger than fiction. And, but being a proud kid from a working class family, I was not going to go to my parents. So I met this guy who said, do you know anything about cows? And I said, I'm from the Midwest. Anyway, the next 6 months, I had one of the most marvelous experiences of my life working on the kibbutz Lachavot Haviva with an Argentine immigrant with 150 cows. And I left my heart in this country at that time, but I have been blessed to have the opportunity to come back over and over again. I say this to you because what we're talking about here, let me read a statement that I made at a conference in Europe last week that had representatives, a crowd this size, representatives from throughout the Middle East. I was the keynote speaker, and I said, U.S. policy is clear. A Jewish state of Israel with unbreakable bonds to America and true security for its citizens. Now, you can take that sentence apart into many pieces, but I'd like to emphasize the words unbreakable bonds. It's plural. It's not singular. It's not just state to state, government to government. I believe it is a web of relationships that starts with people, a web of relationships that is sewn with truly the finest, strongest thread. And I like to view myself as one of those people with a needle and a thread and who tries to keep this and make it stronger. I would like to talk about a few specific issues, if I may. Our time is limited. But first of all, to demonstrate on the national security side the strength of this relationship, let me talk a little bit more about what Congressman Engel said, and something I've worked on for many years, which is the qualitative military edge. I think that is the foundation of our national security relationship. It is absolutely essential that both countries keep their eye on the ball on this one, and I'll get into that towards the end a little bit more. Secondly, and this administration has embraced that completely, and in some respects, which I don't think we can talk about too much here, has gone much further. Secondly is the issue of foreign military financing. This was something launched by the previous administration. It's a 10-year, $3 billion per year commitment. It's a very tangible measure of the support the United States has for the national security of this country. Third, an issue that's near and dear to my heart is Iran. I feel very strongly about Iran, and I want to assure you, while I do not speak as a professor, I don't speak on behalf of the U.S. government, I really honestly believe that the consultations that have been going on are very, very close, very continuous, and I do draw your attention to, I think, the clearest, simplest statement yet by Admiral Mullen at the American Embassy in Tel Aviv a few days ago, when I don't recall ever seeing a press conference at the American Embassy, quite frankly, but he took this step and he said, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon or nuclear capability. Very easy to understand for the whole world, and I hope you find that reassuring. What I'd like to close with, and there's so much we could talk about, but something that I've reflected on a lot. We must be honest with ourselves. The United States has and must have a 360-degree vision of the world. It has to have its eyes and ears everywhere. And as all of you know, we not only project our power, but we station our power throughout the world. Israel is far different. That's why the military is called the Israeli Defense Forces. They are here to defend Israel. And that's quite a job in and of itself. I was really honored to be here last evening to see the Israeli heroes who were honored for their selfless dedication and sacrifice. It's quite stirring. But what I want to close with is my wish for this relationship, because this mismatch, if you call it, results in some disagreements. And Congressman Engel talked about that, Danny talked about that. They are inevitable. But what I would wish that our leadership would do with each other is on all of these issues. And I'd like to see them reach across the table and take that old oath that all physicians do today. I think they all do. It was done more than 2,000 years ago by Hippocrates. First, do no harm. I think that is the kind of, if we always reminded ourselves, the policymakers, the policy practitioners in both countries, and again, getting back to the qualitative military edge, Congressman Engel spoke about that. There are very serious consultations, because as we go forward with a policy on Iran, it's very clear the United States is committed to providing the necessary defenses for our friends and allies throughout the region. They may not all be friends and allies of Israel. In fact, virtually none of them are. But this is essential if we want to preserve the balance in this region. So, once again, my wish is, first, do no harm, but my wish is that all of us have our needle and thread and be sewers of that web of relationships that truly, truly makes our bonds unbreakable. Thank you very much.